Live from SABC headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, welcome to this week's last edition of The Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvoko, and on the show this evening...
I don't think he's resigning. He has not announced that. If he was here, he would have announced that. I think he must do anything that can be done.
President Abupege, I think he was correct to say the ANC must start to prepare the eventuality of all sides.
The meeting did not even start because the meeting itself started in a wrong footing.
Another day of drama as the special ANC-NEC meeting that was to discuss Cyril Ramaphosa's future or fate is unceremoniously aborted. But not before the governing party's warring factions make their positions clear.
We're going back to the basics of being independent from any political party, any federation, and concentrate on servicing our members to make sure that the government does not underestimate the power of the labor movement in this country.
The country's third largest trade union federation suffers a major setback after one of its biggest and powerful affiliates serves it with divorce papers. But is there more to SAFTU's problems than meets the eye? We speak to its General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi. Those stories coming up in tonight's episode of The Watchdog, which starts now. Let's start with that rather surprising SA Police Union story. The union, the second biggest policing union in the country and the third biggest affiliate of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, has decided to go it alone. My colleague Nothando Magudulele spoke to the union's General Secretary.
In 1993, SAPU was founded as an independent union. Over 2 decades later, the union joined forces with trade union SAFTU. But as you have it, SAPU withdrew from this union this week, after less than a decade. The union says this is because SAFTU does not share the same dream as them. The union says the separation will allow it to grow in provinces and to champion workers' issue better.
Unfortunately, for the past years, when we're sitting in the federation, persuading, trying to build what we founded, the principle that we founded the federation on it, we could not. So we're going back to the basics of being independent from any political party, any federation, and concentrate on servicing our members to make sure that the government does not underestimate the power of the labor movement in this country.
Currently, the union says there are no plans to join any other federation. SAPU has raised concerns about the current government's wage offer of 3% and reiterates that the offer is an insult to public servants. The union says this is because government does not fear any federation.
The government is forcing this 3% to the public servant. It's an insult. Where are the federations? It means the government is not afraid of any federation. So why must we belong to the federation if you can fight our own battles?
On the other hand, Police Minister Bheki Cele, in his address at the Congress, said that corruption cannot be justified regardless of one's circumstances. Cele said not having enough should not be used as an excuse to be corrupt. Nothando Magudulele, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Zwelinzima Vavi is SAFTU's General Secretary. He joins us on the line. Mr. Vavi, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Were you as surprised by this move as some of us were?
We were absolutely shocked and surprised, taken aback, because this news would have been absolutely a devastation to the ambition of SAFTU to build independent trade unions, to be a home of democratic, worker-controlled, fighting, campaigning unions in the country in pursuance of the 9 principles, which include that the unions must be independent from their employers and the unions must be independent from political parties. The leadership of SAPU, together with its membership, are quite aware that the Federation has at some times under tremendous pressure stuck to the principles the 9 principles that the unions must be independent, they must be worker-controlled, democratic, they must be campaigning, fighting, militant, in pursuance of the interest of their own members. So this was an utter shock. It was an utter shock because at no stage did the leadership of the union ever raise any of the concerns to the point that will warrant a parting of the ways with the federation. We, as you know, are having very frequent meetings of the National Executive Committee. We are coming from a Congress just 4 months ago. Yes, it was a bitterly contested Congress, as democracy should allow contestation between the unions of the federation. But at no stage did any of these things we're hearing on SABC come out, and which I think that were being used as an excuse to hide the real reasons why the leadership of the union decided to walk out of the federation. That's the first point. The second point is that the union had its 7th National Congress, wherein the federation was not invited, despite us writing letters and pleading with the leadership of the union to invite the federation so that we can participate in the Congress, we can influence the debate. The union leadership was steadfast that the federation will not be invited in its Congress. Instead, the union, SAPU, chose to invite the Minister of Police, Begitele, to be their guest speaker, and the very same person who is part of a collective in cabinet that is carrying out the most brutal austerity program against the police unions, the persons who are responsible for the reduction of the head counts of the police, that makes them vulnerable to criminals every day, the persons who have, through austerity, ensured that the police have no equipment in the police stations to respond to the escalating levels of crime that everybody is aware of. And but the comrades were very happy to rub shoulders with the minister, but would not invite. In fact, they wanted us to come only to their dinner, which will have taken place after the Congress had been concluded. So we want to take this opportunity to, again, when you give us an opportunity, to go point by point on all of the issues that the General Secretary of SAPU was raising, which we contest as untrue and hiding the real reason. And the call we want to make to the comrades is forget the reasons that were being used as an excuse on television, but come and engage the leadership of the Federation about any concerns that you may have. But certainly, you cannot make a claim that the Federation is not growing when the facts are that SAPU, as a founding member of the Federation, actually grew by 6,000 between the time it joined the Federation and when it leaves. It was at 76,000, it is now at 82%. All other public sector unions of the Federation have experienced a phenomenal growth. And that's why we, despite the fact that the economy lost 2 million jobs in the midst of the COVID pandemic, we could hold a decline in our membership because our public sector unions, including SAPU, were growing. That's the first point. The second point, the comrade says that we are not adding any value in SAPU. Not true. Not true, because we have added value. We have given an exposure to SAPU that they would have never, ever enjoyed if they were not part of the Federation. Every week, either through the Federation or through themselves, they have been appearing in the public media, punching way above their weight with their 82,000 membership. SAFTU, together with SAPU, were raised the issue of the brutality of the killing of the police officers. Had we not been championing that, nobody would know the rate at which criminality against even the police is taking place in the country.
Now,
SAFTU assisted that union to campaign for the insourcing of the 10,111 workers who were casualized by the police. It took SAFTU leadership to, with SAPU stage sit-ins, marches, lead the negotiations such that those workers are insourced today. From the inception of this current round of negotiations, it's SAFTU that has been leading the charge, providing intellectual capacity and research to help its own unions, something that is not only appreciated by its own unions, but by the other federations as well. So I can go on and on.
Look, I appreciate the fact that, you are able and prepared to actually put your side of the story. We were as shocked as you say you are, but it does, this whole thing raises quite a number of issues. And unfortunately, some of these issues we can't canvass tonight precisely because SAPU could not come because they have a gala dinner, we were told, so no one from their officials were available this evening. So thank you for at least affording us the opportunity to
that is the gala dinner that we were invited.
You did say yes. But I just want to touch on one or two issues in the time that we have left. In fact, we have run out of time. One being, does it not suggest, or does this episode then not suggest that the relations between yourselves as the leadership of SAFTU and your affiliates, or at least some of them, is not where it is supposed to be? Because I cannot fathom a situation where one of your affiliates can simply walk out without having said a word. That's quite incredible.
That's incredible indeed. It's a challenge to the Federation. And that's why in this platform, we want to make a call to the leadership of SAPU. It is not late for you to come back to the Federation's leadership, engage them with the concerns that you have, and make sure that there is a common understanding. The misunderstandings are dealt with and put aside, and the problems are solved so that we, together with them, can continue working to ensure that we build a new home of all unions that believe that unions must be independent, that they must be democratic, militant, fighting, and campaigning. But more importantly, they must continue to champion the struggle against corruption inside the unions and outside in the society. And they must continue to advance the struggle for socialism, a struggle for a non-racial, non-sexist society, and they must continue to have an international approach to the struggle. And they have adopted the principle that we are Pan-Africanist. And we want to argue, we have not departed an inch to any of the founding principles of the Federation. And anybody who can claim that we have departed from what we promised the workers that we're going to be must come for a debate with us. We are ready. But we want those debates inside the structures of the Federation, not on public media.
Now, if, as you are suggesting, there are reasons for parting ways with SAFTU have nothing to do with the issues that they have raised with us publicly, what then, in any of you, or what could be the real reasons?
No, I'm not willing to enter into that discussion for now. The plea we want to make is, SAPU, you belong to your federation you have built from the beginning. SAFTU is an independent federation. To suggest that that is not true is to lie through the teeth of anybody who utters such a statement. The federation must strive. Of course, this is things are easy said than done, to be a democratic, worker-controlled. But more importantly, unions must be campaigning, must be fighting. And to throw in a towel now and say the federations are useless and that they have failed to stop the government from implementing unilaterally a 3% wage offer when effectively the fragmentization of SAFTU will further weaken the voice of workers, is to be disingenuous to say it more diplomatically than I would like to say.
Are they the first union to take a stance like this, or to come even close to taking such a stance? Is it the very first time that you have an affiliate so unhappy, for whatever reason, maybe for different reasons, in other words, reasons other than what SAPU in this instance is putting forth? Have you had that experience in your existence where an affiliate is so angry with you that it just walks out, or is prepared to walk out?
Never has this happened in the short history of just 6 years of SAFTU. It's unprecedented. It is totally unfortunate. It is working against the stated objectives of uniting workers to belong to independent, militant, fighting unions that are guided by the 9 principles that were adopted unanimously by every union in the Federation. And certainly, the point that I think we must emphasize, that there is a debate about crystallizing a workers' party, which SAPU have participated on from day one, including in the very last Central Committee, where their position that SAFTU should not engage with this debate, must step back from the politics, is but part of the 3 options that the Central Committee adopted in November. How could you, having scored such a victory inside the Federation, suddenly walk away on an excuse that there's a debate? Where will there be no debate amongst unions in South Africa about different directions, political posture, the economic, social demands that unions must be pursuing? Unions are democratic creatures, and the leadership of all unions are free to advance whatever mandate that they may have from their own congresses. NUMSA, for example, have been advancing that SAFTU must endorse the SRPP. What's wrong with that? Why would you then say we are walking away? Other unions have been saying, no, we must create a mass, we must crystallize a mass workers' party. What's wrong with that? If that is an issue that is openly debated within the structures of the Federation. SAPU have advanced a position that says we shouldn't enter into this discussion. Workers in the politics should not mix at all. Other unions says we agree with you. Others says we don't agree with you. Why would you walk out? And that's why we insist that no, there have to be another reason that the comrades must be willing to engage the leadership of the Federation. The National Executive Committee is absolutely concerned and is devastated that a union that they have become so accustomed to as a critical player inside the structures of the Federation suddenly refuses to invite the Federation, which suggests that there was a decision already taken somewhere. Block the Federation, mustn't come, must not address the delegates, must not influence the Congress. We will just shock it. We will just shock it with a letter after the Congress.
A quick one before I let you go. One, because that's the story, that's a conversation I'm having next. But secondly, you are, of course, a big voice, I mean, in South Africa as a federation. And thirdly, you know some of the people who are deeply involved in what is happening or not happening right now. Many of them are your erstwhile comrades. Your thoughts on the whole Phala Phala saga and the meeting that actually didn't take place today?
Well, the ANC is in crisis, and the crisis is self-manufactured and self-made. The president have taken a spear and just pushed it against his chest. And as you would have seen the Business Day cartoon today, this is all self-made. And unfortunately, the movement, the ANC, is in a situation now where it is debating who is a better devil between all of us as devils. And there's a crisis. Everybody as Matabile Dlamini would have said a few years ago, and lots of people thought that she was drunk and not getting the story right, she would have pointed out that every member of the National Executive Committee have a skeleton in the cabinet, in the cupboard, and that once these cupboards could be taken out, hell will break loose. And indeed, hell is now breaking loose. The politics of no principles, which is what have made the ANC to lose the trust of the majority of the people, as you know. The 2/3 of the voting population are no longer interested to go and exercise their hard-won democratic rights to vote. They have been turned off from the politics. They know that what the movement stands for now or today is in direct contrast with its most celebrated values of Ubuntu, selflessness, sacrifice, willingness to put one's life on the line for the common good of all the struggling masses of our people. They've moved away from that. It's now down into the dog, the survival of the fittest, and who can do better, but otherwise we all accept that we are in a terrible situation. Ramaphosa must be saved because he's a better devil. If William Kiz, Didi Mabuza were to come, oh God help us all. We are into that debate of a crisis. It's a sinking ship, as we said, ages when we're still in Kosatu, that is like being in a ship where the captains have all been blindfolded, and that we are now moving towards a massive ice block. And all of us are just waiting for an implosion. And there's an implosion in society. And a week ago, the Statistics South Africa says unemployment rate now sits at 43%. It sits at 51% for black women. It sits at 70.4% for the young people between the age of 25 and 24. And it says that 82 people are dying every day. 10,000 women were raped in 3 months. The stories we are listening to on radio, TV every day about the brutality of the crime, and there is just absolutely a shocking. We are approaching a failed state. As I usually say, we are standing right at the doorsteps of a house written boldly in big letters, failed state, welcome to a banana republic. That's where we are, unfortunately. And I wonder if the ANC can save itself from itself on the 16th of December, or it may see one of its very, very last conferences, unless, and I can't see how is this going to happen, because I can't see between the leaders that are currently holding assegais against each other, that they will step back and think about that 43% unemployment rate, and that the fact that South Africa is the most unequal society with only 10% of the population occupying wealth of 90% of the population. That's the crisis that nobody is speaking about on the eve of this conference. It's all about palace politics, who must come in, Puma ngena, ixesha lethu lisondele, Puma siyangena. That type of politics will take the country absolutely nowhere.
Mr. Zwelinzima Vavi, let me thank you for your time this evening. He is the General Secretary of SAFTU on the back, of course, of that rather surprising move by the SA Police Union, which has decided to break away from the SAFTU and go independent. Of course, it's a story we will keep watching. After the break,
I don't think he's resigning. He has not announced that. If he was, he would have announced that. I think he must do anything that can be done.
President Abupege, yeah, I think he was correct to say the ANC must start to prepare the eventuality of all sides.
The meeting did not even start because the meeting itself started in a wrong footing.
Another day of drama as the special ANC-NEC meeting that was discussed Ramaphosa's future or fate is unceremoniously aborted. That's the story we're looking into after this short break. The special ANC-NEC meeting that was supposed to discuss the Section 89 independent panel report on President Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala Phala saga has been postponed. Natasha Piri has the details.
The meeting did not even start because the meeting itself started in a wrong footing. We had a national chairperson speaking to you guys, preempting the outcome of the meeting, and then we got to the meeting, and then many issues were raised about the report itself, which was not processed by the officials and NWC of the ANC, and also the report itself that was going to be discussed in the absence of the president, who is a deployee of the ANC. So there were many mixed feelings. The contradictions between the TG and the national chair in addressing the issue of the absence of the president itself caused contradictions. So it created this situation of us not sitting or concluding or even start the meeting itself.
A meeting that was supposed to discuss the fate of ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa could not even start. Officials were accused of not finding each other, and now it's back to the drawing board.
NEC in its wisdom today decided that they would like that report to be given to the officials of the ANC first. The officials must process it, convene an NWC. Once the NWC is done, we will convene the NEC, and we should do this before the 6th of December. So between tomorrow and Sunday, we'll do all that. And the meeting felt, let's not discuss today, let's adjourn to allow the officials to meet NWC and then come back. So we'll come back to the NEC before the 6th.
ANC Chief Whip in Parliament says she'll have to wait for the outcome of the NEC to give direction to its caucus in Parliament.
I'm more than ready to deal with the processes when they come to Parliament. There are rules, there is a constitution, and we have to follow the right processes as outlined by the rules, as outlined by the constitution. At the moment, I don't have any position to communicate with caucus because the NEC still have to process this matter.
Ramaphosa's fate is now in the hands of his political allies and nemesis who have sharpened their knives going for the kill. Natasha Piri, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, before we bring you more from what other critical players had to say today around this saga, let me introduce you to my panel for this evening, who are going to help us navigate some of the issues that Ramaphosa's friends and foes raised today. Professor Bheki Mngomezulu is based at the University of the Western Cape. Lokhanyo Vanga is an independent political analyst. Good evening to both of you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. I'm keen to know just what you make of today's turn of events, Professor Mngomezulu.
No, thank you very much, Budvuyo, and good evening to your listeners and viewers, and also to my colleague. You know, Vuyo, this is very concerning on a number of fronts. One, the ANC is currently facing financial challenges. And now you waste money by convening a special NEC meeting, which ends abruptly before even tabling the report because of some procedural matters. Then the question becomes, didn't the ANC know what the processes are? They should be followed before the issue is tabled before the NEC. If they didn't, then of course we may pardon them for that. But of course we'll go back and say, are they operating without rules in place? Then if they knew, but they bypassed those rules, then who is to blame for all of this? In your insert at the beginning, the blame is going to go to the TG, that is the Treasurer General of the party, and also the chairperson of the party. But were they the only people who are to blame? If, for example, you accept an invitation that you are going to attend an NEC meeting to discuss a document which has not been processed, why don't you raise the issue with both the TG and of course the chairperson? So everyone is to blame, not just the TG and the chairperson. So that will be my first take on this issue.
For you, Mr. Vanga.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me, Vuyo, and good evening to the viewers. I think I agree with Prof that this was a cop-out from the NEC. It's a dereliction of duty for them to be able to be the highest decision-making body when the organization faces these types of challenges. There's no way that you can be called to a special NEC when you're told matters are so urgent that we need to bypass and not wait for, a normal sitting of the NEC because of this emergency. And you raise technicalities of where was this report, processed and all those things. Because in the ANC constitution, a special NEC can be called by the SG for any reasons that he deems sufficient to, convene all the NEC members. So this was a cop-out on their part. They needed to step up to the plate and be able to give direction and guidance to the rest of the organization, and also their deployees in parliament who must contend with this particular challenge that is facing the organization and has befallen their president. So by their failure to do that, I think it was a dereliction of duty from the NEC, because you don't need normal processes in an abnormal situation like this one.
In fact, I would concur with you, Mr. Van. I think actually it's a bit disingenuous of anyone in that NEC to claim or argue that they didn't read the report. They had no reason not to. The report is out there. It's a public document now. Everyone knew from 10 a.m. in the morning that it was going to be released. We as journalists and everyone else who had an interest in this story were looking forward to actually, grabbing the report. I remember, when the report became public, eventually, one had to look at the report while I was on air to try and look for things to say. Now, after Paul Mashatile had indicated, one, that there was going to be a meeting of the top 6, now top 4 officials as soon as that report is handed over to the Speaker of the National Assembly. Everyone's antennas should have gone up. And the minute it was announced that it would indeed be made available to everybody, each and every member of that NEC should have made an effort, at the very least, Prof, to go through at least some of it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with both yourself and also Mr. Banga. First of all, we're not talking about a lengthy document of 200 pages. Some of us have been reading over 400 pages when we examine PhDs from students and other universities. Now, how on earth can you fail to read such a short document? Of course, including the 138 pages that were written by the president in response to the questions that had been posed to him. So I agree entirely with my colleague that it amounts to dereliction of duty on the one hand, but then on the other hand, I think it's being disrespectful to the general public, because remember that we're talking about office bearers, we're talking about the governing party, we're talking about people who are wanting to come back to office in 2024. So now if you can't get small things like this right, then the question is, what can be expected going forward? So it's concerning, honestly. It's concerning, more especially given the fact that the party is trying to rebuild itself and rebrand itself, as the president said. And then is it the way you want to rebrand the party? In other words, moving from bad to worse. I don't think it's a good move. We can look at it from all angles. It's just not good.
In fact, rebranding the party, that's the job and the duty, of ANC members and ANC officials. In this particular instance, this is about the country, because everything that is going on, that's being said around the president, and of course, the ANC right now, goes to the heart of this democracy. And that is what most South Africans care about right now, and perhaps less so, about, the ability or inability of the governing party to self-correct. But Mr. Fanga, here's something that also, troubled me from what the man currently running the ANC, and that's Treasurer General Paul Mashatile, had to say to my colleagues, the journalists that he was speaking to. He says, the National Working Committee, has to meet again and process this report. Now, again, the National Working Committee met yesterday, and its job, as everyone who, keeps an eye on these processes and events knows, the job of the National Working Committee is to make it clear what the agenda is of the meeting of the National Executive Committee, which is the biggest or highest decision-making body of the ANC between conferences. The job of the National Working Committee is to do exactly what it didn't do. Now that National Working Committee has to meet again and do what it was supposed to do yesterday, which clearly it didn't do. There again, to use words, comes the issue or question of dereliction of duty.
I wouldn't be swayed with that argument, Vuyo, because the National Working Committee has no responsibility to process matters that are going to a special NEC. Because the very reason for you to call a special NEC is because you want to bypass all processes and normal processes. So maybe the National Working Committee would have been advised, to look at the document as well as everyone has done, as you were saying, that the moment we knew that this document was going to come out, this report, we made means to make sure that we get our hands onto it. We got this document on a Wednesday evening. I think I slept at 4 a.m. studying this document to be able to, familiarize myself with it. So the NWC could have been expected to have made similar labor of responsibility like that, and it was a labor of love for some of us. So in that instance, I would agree with that. But the NEC knows that this particular matter, as soon as it came out, a special NEC was called. That means suspend all normal processes of the ANC. You don't even have to comply with the constitutionally provisioned timeframes for how long you must give people a notice or alert when you're calling these meetings. So in that instance, or in that scenario, the NWC would not have been required as a necessary stepping stone for the NEC to be able to deal with this very fundamental and serious issue that they failed to deal with today. I mean, the same thing we saw when they were recalling their presidents. They call a special NEC, and they, mandate each other to go engage the president and ask him to step down. If he refuses to do so, then you call another special NEC. You don't go through the officials and then go through an NWC before you go into an NEC. You go straight for a special NEC. They've been here before. I don't know why they are raising these technicalities.
Prof, the ANC president, and as Ms. Phala calls him, a deployee of the ANC, was not at today's NEC meeting, and she had a problem with that. Does she have a point?
Vuyo, our politicians are being economical with the truth. I don't want to say they are lying because I'll be understood, I'll be misconstrued to be disrespectful. So they are being economical with the truth. If, as my colleague is saying, you have a special matter which you want to dispense of, you basically suspend everything. And the president is not someone like you and I who has to go online and then check which flights are available. He can always be in Cape Town, and then when the need arises, he flies back to Pretoria. In an age, it's not like us. So then the question is, if the president was in Cape Town, as we had allegedly in Cape Town, I don't even know who he was consulting in Cape Town. That is a story for another day. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, the president was in Cape Town, and then the meeting was convened. But then, of course, we suspend everything, as my colleague is saying. But that is just by the way. We know that this special NEC was initially scheduled to take place on the 9th of December. That is next week. Then, because this Section 89 panel had been been released, then there was an agency of the matter, which then confirms what my colleague is saying there. Once you have an agent matter, you then have to suspend everything because they had to call the meeting now to sit yesterday. And then that too changed last minute. Some of us had to suspend other issues because we were general interest in what was going to transpire, only to be told that one, the president is no longer going to address the nation. Secondly, the special NEC meeting has been postponed. So we're disappointed twice yesterday, only to be disappointed again today when the NEC then eventually met. And then, of course, these kinds of things we're talking about transpire. Then your question comes in, Vuyo. The president is not there. Now, if you want to discuss an issue of such magnitude and the president is implicated and you have a question, are you going to then say, okay, wait a bit, let's call the president in Cape Town and get his views on this matter? There is no logic there. I can't understand why the president was not there. and neither does the SG, and neither does also the chairperson. That is why they gave conflicting messages. So the concern is genuine.
Now, our colleague, Samkele Maseko, of course, found a few minutes to speak to Gwede Mandashe, the ANC's national chairperson. And some interesting comments there. I want to play a clip of a couple of minutes or so and hear your thoughts, especially coming as that short interview would come on the back of Ms. Phala again saying she had issues with someone like Gwede Mandashe going outside of the meeting. Well, the meeting hadn't taken place when Gwede Mandashe spoke to Samkele Maseko. But speaking to journalists about matters that were going to be discussed at that very NEC meeting. But take a listen to that interview.
That an organization is a living organism, is a living creature. You play with the head of a creature, that creature will die. Okay, you don't do that. So we never protected the individual. We protected the office of the president, which was occupied by President Zuma. It is now occupied by President Ramaphosa. That office is important to the ANC. There may be issues there. You must protect that office, whether problems revolve around the president or the president revolve around problems. You must protect the office. The individuals, an individual, they will come and go, but that office must remain intact.
Mr. Mandashe, I'm going to put this to you as crudely as it is. Historically, President Ramaphosa has been accused of having a political history of throwing his choice whenever things don't go his way. He was accused of dumping the ANC when he was not favored to take over, to be the deputy president to former Nelson Mandela, ultimately led to former President Mbeki taking over. People accuse him of dumping the ANC as SG and going into private business. Is he not similarly doing the same thing he's accused of doing yesteryear?
No, I don't want to give evidence on anything that I can't raise my right hand and say, so help me God. I don't do that, because I will be speculating. When he was SG and left for business, do you know where I was? I was in the National Union of Mine Workers, very far removed from the situation. So to ask me to give evidence on that issue is just a dangerous chance that I must be taking. All I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong for anybody to be proud of protecting one's dignity. I never find a fault with that, because it is necessary to do that, because when everything falls, that is the only thing that is left with you. So throwing toys is a different matter, but appreciating the fact that my dignity is at stake, there's nothing wrong with that. That's why there's an organization that must talk to him and say, no, this time, let's allow this process to unfold, take this report on review, do this and this. The organization must do so. At that time, the organization took a decision that we're releasing you. That's why President Nelson Mandela issued a statement and called the press and explained that he is being released. Now, that shows the responsibility of the organization over the individual.
So, Mr. Mandashe, in essence, you are saying that you are telling your president of the country and the president of the ANC that it's not about you, Ramaphosa, but this is about the liberation movement, it's about the governing party, the ANC, and the country. It's less about yourself.
That is true. It can't be about him, because he's the president of the ANC, he is the president of the country. Therefore, whatever decision takes will have far-reaching implications for the ANC and for the country. And the economy will respond to that issue. You get my point? You know, one time there was an appointment of a minister of finance, and the rand collapsed in 4 days to a point that we said, no, let's reverse this decision. It happens because it's not about the individuals, it's about society. And then the ANC.
But are you then not elevating an individual above the organization itself and making him more important than the African National Congress.
When you elect a president, you are elevating that individual already at that point. It's not elevated now. He was elevated when he was elected president of the organization to be the leader of the organization. Now, a leader of the organization is not elevated, is the leader of the organization. That's what he is. And therefore, you are not elevating him above anything. You are just saying, reminding that, listen, you are leading an organization. It can't be about yourself.
Mr. Vanga, I mean, we know, don't we, where Mr. Gwede stands on this one. He argues that it's about protecting the office and not the person. Your thoughts?
I think one of the biggest challenges that the ANC has had is the strong personality of Gwede that is able to confidently and vehemently argue for any position, even when that position is blatantly wrong and not to the benefit of the organization. For an example, when asked very directly by Samkele, are you not elevating the individual above the organization? Doesn't dispute it, but it gives a defense as to why they're doing that. And it's incorrect that you run an organization with individuals that believe that they're above the organization, and the organization and its membership will always give uncritical loyalty and support to them, even when they do wrong things. That creates a culture of impunity where people know whatever I do, the organization will stand behind me. And that's why you got Ngandla. That's why you had the Concord judgment that said that Parliament failed to hold the president accountable for what happened around Ngandla. Mm-hmm. And also the Zondo report that has been very critical of the ANC and the fact that it was missing in action when their president at that time, President Jacob Zuma, was said to be involved in a lot of irregularities. They stood by and didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. Now imagine if the Zondo report or the Zondo Commission were to sit in 10 years from now and they asked Gwede when this man was said to have stuffed $580,000 minimum in his sofa, where were you? What did you do? What did you say? It cannot be correct that anyone would ever think that would have been a normal situation, that someone sits with currency in their sofa. Mm-hmm. And that's what Mandashe gives us.
Your view, Professor, on Mr. Mandashe's comments?
No, luckily I watched Mr. Mandashe's interview in one of your sister media houses. Basically, there are two things here. There is an ideal situation and there is a real situation. In an ideal world, what Mandashe was saying sounds okay, but the reality of the matter is we got the order all wrong. The order should be, is the nation first, the organization second, and then me as an individual last. But the way things are happening is the direct opposite thereof. People think about themselves first, they think about the organization second, and then the nation comes last, if at all. The way this thing happens is when you support something that is not worth supporting, when you support a view that is not worth supporting, simply because you have vested interest and you have asked the question, what is in it for me? Not for the party, not for the nation, what is in it for me? This is what is happening. There are people who support an incumbent president, not because they believe what he or she is doing is right, but because they think they are going to benefit from that. We've seen this happening in other countries, in Zimbabwe to be exact, where Robert Mugabe at one point was ready to resign, but then those who were surrounding him were thinking about themselves. They said, Mr. President, just give it a few more months. We'll see how to maneuver the situation so that you continue in office. This is exactly the same what is happening with our president. Even if he wants to resign, he can't do it at one go. He will have to consult like he's doing right now, because he knows there are individuals who would want him to stay, not because they believe in him, but because they know they're going to benefit for as long as it is there. However they're going to benefit, I'm not going to spell out the details. Politicians know what those benefits are.
Of course, I mean, something else that was interesting was comments made by the provincial secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. I hope we can play a bit of that, and I want your closing comments on that one. He too was speaking to journalists, including, of course, our own Samkele Maseko at Nasrec earlier today.
I don't work on rumors, you know me. I work on what, until we get a factual report that the president decided to resign and then was convinced, until that has not happened, I can't comment on that.
Do you think there's a solid basis for him to step aside?
Sorry?
Do you think there's a solid basis for him to step aside?
No, not necessarily step aside. You know, some of us, we are principled. We are not going to say because it's Ramaphosa we believe on the step aside. You know, the position of KZN, we don't believe on the step aside. What we say is that step aside, remember, is not moving away from your position. What we say is that he must take the right decision.
He must do the right thing. I'm not going to say he must step aside. Of course, I mean, again, as I said earlier with regard to Mr. Gwede Mandashe, we know exactly where he stands. We also know that the provincial executive of KwaZulu-Natal has endorsed Dr. Zweli Mkhize as their candidate for the position of president. Just from the little we managed to play you in the time we have, Prof, your thoughts, very briefly?
No, thanks. Yes, Mr. Mtolo is in fact being diplomatic there. He says the president must do the right thing. No, in fact, what he meant, the president must resign. Not because he wants to, but because he has to. Both for what Mandashe was saying, protecting the office and protecting the image of the ANC, but most importantly, protecting the country. That will then allow this thing to die down. Because they failed to listen when some of us at the very beginning were saying that they must attend to the Phala Phala matter sooner than later.
Show leadership.
The complexity of the situation right now is because on the one hand, they are thinking about addressing this matter. On the other hand, they are thinking about the elective conference. And that makes the situation even more complex than it would have been had they acted earlier.
Closing comments, Mr. Vanwa, on this one?
Voya, the president has been missing in action since Wednesday evening when this report was released. The country has not had leadership for over 48 hours. We cannot continue as a country to be suspended in animation. We face very serious and grave challenges as a country, and we need a leader that is present and that is able to give 100% of his attention to resolving the issues that face the country and not attend to personal problems that attach to him. So the president needs to do the right thing, and he needs to resign for the greater good of the country and her people.
Gentlemen, let me thank both of you for coming through for us this evening and helping us understand these issues better. Professor Kim Gomezulu, based at the University of the Western Cape, Lucanio Vanwa, an independent political analyst. That's our show for tonight and, of course, for this week. Do have a good night and a great weekend till we touch base again on Monday. All of us looking forward, of course, to what the ANC is going to say and do over this weekend. For now, though, it's a goodbye from the Watchdog team.